Hello, and welcome to Movers, Shakers, Designers, and Makers. I'm Steve Carpenter, Dean of the College of Arts and Architecture here at Penn State. And today I'm talking with Samantha Josaphat, a Bachelor of Architecture graduate and founder of Studio 397, a New York-based architecture and interior design firm. Samantha, thanks for joining me today to have a conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm
Good.
excited.
Excellent, excellent. Well, so am I. This is an interview, a conversation I've been looking forward to for a while. So thanks for agreeing to be here. But so to start off, for the benefit of folks who don't know you, can you just provide a brief overview of the trajectory to your career now from where you were as a student at Penn State?
Sure. So I started Penn State in the fall of 2006. And I was actually in the Division of Undergraduate Studies. At the time, I didn't know I wasn't an architecture student because I thought I could just say I was an architecture student and voila, I was an architecture student. So I actually had to apply to the architecture school in 2006 and I got accepted, but because it was a BArch program, I couldn't start until the following fall. So I started the architecture program in 2007 and I was there for 5 years and graduated on May 5th. 2012. I will always remember that date. And so after graduation, I moved to New York and looked for a job for about 8 months and found a job at a small architecture and engineering company in the city. From there, I had moved to several firms. The firms ranged from engineering companies to small architecture firms that did retail work to larger architecture firms that did large corporate interiors. And then only 5 years after that, I decided to go off on my own after I got my license and start Studio 397.
Nice.
So and here we are today, 3 years later after starting off. We just celebrated our 3-year anniversary.
You just celebrated your 3-year anniversary. So
last
3
Friday.
Short years or 3 long years?
No, it wasn't 3 long years. It was 3 very interesting, learning, amazing years, I would say. Like I learned a lot more than what I thought I was going to learn. I thought I was just going to do architecture, but I learned business. So that was really exciting.
Nice. So 3 productive years as well.
Yes, 3 productive years. That is the perfect word.
Excellent. So, Samantha, I know the answer to this next question, but I need to ask it because I think it opens up a very important aspect of what you do and your current firm. So for people who don't know the answer to this question, I'm going to ask the question and love to hear your answer. But what is the origin of the name of your firm, Studio 397?
So Studio, because it's a studio, and 397, I found out after I got licensed that I was the 397th licensed Black female architect in all of the US. And when I found that number, I was like, wow, like I remember graduating from a high school class of 350 students. So how is it that in 2017, I'm the 397th licensed Black female architect? And at the time I was looking to go out on my own and I was just like, well, why don't I name my firm Studio 397 so that there's a story behind, why we got started and the importance of that number and the importance of that number growing.
I really appreciate how you've folded history within the name of the studio, but also there's an opportunity for education for people, because I'm sure you get that question quite often.
Yeah.
And your answer then provides people an entry point into history, into society, into the field of architecture, and maybe ways they hadn't anticipated at the outset of asking that question.
Exactly. It also brings value to me in the sense of there's a perspective that, my clients or colleagues might have where it's just like, wow, I never even imagined that you were a minority within this profession in the sense of a minority within a minority, like a woman and Black, and so I feel like it's just a hidden reminder all the time. And it feels really good when I have client meetings and people are constantly referring to us as Studio 397, because I'm like, that number is going to sit in everyone's head. And, you know, once they leave the meeting, then they can be talking to someone else and they'll always remember that number and say, hey, by the way, you know, the number of licensed Black female is, you know, pretty low. You know, we're still at 0.3%, and we were at 0.3% of licensed architects back when I was at Penn State.
I think about what you said in terms of a minority within a minority, right? But you're talking in terms of numerical or quantifiable
Yeah.
minority, right? So,
Yeah.
and so I'm thinking about that notion of that intersectional piece where you're not just talking about women,
Yeah.
or you're not just talking about people of color. You're
Yeah.
talking about
Specifically. Yeah.
specifically, and even more precisely, people. You're talking about Black licensed women architects.
Yeah.
That's a very specific intersectional identity that
Yeah, I mean, and even if you think about it on an academic standpoint, you know, that number gets even smaller when you think about, you know, how many Black architects graduated from an accredited architecture school, you know, how many Black architects, like I remember around the time I got my license, I was actually trying to think of how many Black architects, not even Black female architects, graduated from the Penn State architecture program. And unfortunately, I only knew one other. I mean, and I know her pretty well. It's crazy because we know each other from around the world, because there's so little of us. Like, you know, as soon as we make it's like you do the nod, but you do the nod even harder when you when
when you make it count
in your field.
That's right, because it means something.
Yeah, and you know the experiences they probably had, or like, you know, the experiences they're having right now in the work field. And so it's just, you know, a sense of like acknowledgement, and, you know, I see you, and I you know, I value your presence.
That's it. Yeah. So let's talk about the ICU part in certain ways here, because if we think about the current cultural and social moment that we're in, with respect to, let's just say, even specifically the timeline after Memorial Day, after George Floyd's death, issues of racial inequality are more present in the headlines, I think, now than they have been previously. Universities are taking certain actions, cities are taking certain actions. You know, I'm particularly interested in your take on the current social moment with respect to racial inequalities. But then more specifically, I'd like to talk to you about your experiences at Penn State in a little bit more detail. Yeah.
Sure. So I guess it was around June when, you know, there was a bit more attention to the racial inequality in America. And at the time, like, you know, I was mourning, I was dealing with it as I typically do, you know, and, you know, back since like 2015, when, you know, police officers started to have body cams and you would see these videos more often, like I was experiencing it more often. And I was experiencing, and this is typical for all humans, when you see someone that looks like you, naturally you have a little bit more sympathy. And yes, we should have sympathy for all people, and that's a way of just being a better human. But, you know, I was seeing a lot of these videos of, you know, Black men or Black women interacting with the police in a way that, like, I couldn't wash it out of my head when I was going to work. And so when it happened in June, you know, I did my typical regimen, like, you know, I see what's happening, you know, I'm trying to process it, but I'm also trying to find a moment of peace for myself so that I'm not going crazy. And in that process of mourning, or in that process of trying to, you know, navigate, you know, this uproar, my emails are flooded. Why? Because, you know, I'm president of the New York NOMA chapter, and, you know, I'm a professor at City College. And so being a leader in the industry, like all of a sudden, everyone just flooded my inbox with what to do. And I was just like, wait a minute. And so a lot of my initial emails were out of frustration, to be honest, because it was just like, did you think about me, or are you trying to just react? Because I need space, I need time. And so a lot of my responses were very much like, I'm happy you're acknowledging this now, but I need to focus on my membership, I need to focus on my students, I need to focus on myself, so I can't do the work for you. So please provide me with solutions, because that's what you would tell me if I was working in your firm. Provide me with solutions and we can discuss, but do not email me with what do I do. And I value the act of them coming to me because of who I am, but I was very frustrated in the act of, you don't know what to do. And instead of actually trying to do something, you're just relying on me to provide my time to you, when my time is very valuable right now. And so, during that time, it was very frustrating. And as weeks went by, I was able to process it. I was able to have conversations with who I needed to have conversations with, personally and professionally. So by the time I had like my general body meeting with my members of the organization, I was at peace in a set, peace as in the sense of I was able to communicate without this rage and anger and frustration. And I was able to, moderate a discussion amongst my membership where, they felt like they were in a safe space to tell us how they've been feeling, how they've been reacting to, people within their companies and solutions they may have thought of. And another thing, just in that call reminded me, not every Black person is the same. And so, some of us might feel one way and some of us might feel another way. A lot of, some people might be a little bit more willing to say, okay, let me provide you with solutions. But because I'm so busy and I have to figure out how to delegate a lot of, requests, I couldn't fully commit to helping one firm or one organization because there were multiple people reaching out to me at once. And so it was very helpful to just have that discussion. And, you're always learning from different people. And so I learned that some of my reactions were wrong, but, that's the other beauty of having mentors and not having to actually listen to them. Sometimes you can be like, all right, I hear you, but I'm still going to do what I want to do. So So it was somewhat of a roller coaster, but I came out alive, and man, it was hard.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. Listening to you respond to that question, your response is not dissimilar to responses I've received from friends, colleagues here at Penn State and other places. It was a mixed response, right? I mean, there's this mix of emotions or responsibilities or sensibilities in terms of who you're talking with or who's asking, and there's a moment where you say, okay, I like what you said, I can't do the work for you, or tell me how you would respond. But there's a range of ways of responding, regardless of whether you're in architecture or what have you, to respond to people within your various circles of proximity. And so, I really appreciate how you responded, because it encapsulates the range of conversations that I've had with people, friends, family members, colleagues, and to some extent, there's although maybe not intended by the person reaching out with the email or the conversation, there's a set of responsibilities perhaps that they're asking that you feel like, okay, I could provide that, but it's now a burden, right? Or it's now a responsibility that
even responding to emails felt like a burden, not even responding with solutions. It was just the first week I got emails, and I would read the email, I will fling my hands in the air. Sometimes I would cry out of frustration, and then I'll focus on an email, how to politely respond without showing too much anger. And so, and I'm okay with saying that because I'm human. I mean, we get frustrated, but when I respond to someone and say, hey, I don't have the solutions for you, and then, they turn around a couple of days later and say, hey, you can speak to our membership. I'm like, that's not my job to speak to your membership.
That's right.
That's your job. Remember that.
That's right.
I have an entire group of, people I have to respond to. And so it's so that was a lot.
Sure. But at the same time, you don't want to shut down the curiosity and the connection, emotional social or sense of responsibility that someone might have asking that question, what can I do or what can you do to help me? So you don't want to shut down the conversation, but at the same time, you want to make sure
Right.
that it's not a one directional.
The one solution I found with that, and that could be me being young and petty, but sometimes I use that to my advantage. But I would remind people like, hey, remember that MOU you were supposed to review and sign that I sent last year? How about you sign that? And so that was an act of like, I'll work with you, but let's pay attention to the agenda and not the uproar, because I don't want to be a part of a performance. I want to be a part of real action and real change.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of my mentors was like, that wasn't the right way to respond. And I was like, why? Because I put him on blast? Like, I mean, okay.
But, sometimes you have to say what you need to say, right?
Yeah. You can't react the same way in every situation. And so.
I get it. So you said something about knowing how or knowing when to act or working out certain kinds of solutions. So let's think back about your time as a student at Penn State and maybe speak to the point of an experience that might have been let's not limit it to an experience. Let's think about like a takeaway you had from your experience as a student. So a positive takeaway that you've carried with you, that's either been a wind behind you to help you excel. But then on the flip side, I also like to hear about, and back to this earlier part of the conversation, of the flip side, can you talk about what you think we might be able to do in the college to respond to the needs of current and future students of color?
Definitely. So the first part is to kind of talk about experience that I feel like has taken me to where I am today.
Correct.
And then the other part, like how can the university or how can the school progress a little bit further in the future? That's right. Every time I talk about Penn State, I get emotional. So if I get emotional in as I'm talking, please forgive me. But Penn State was crazy. It was great. It was like, I say like I might forget certain moments, but at the same time, like I can never forget that experience because I learned so much. I learned so much about different people because of the different people I was around. I've learned more about my culture being at Penn State because of, Caribbean students that had more Caribbean background or experience than I did. And so, a lot of my experience at Penn State was not even just architecture. It was just how to be a better person or how to value myself even better. And so I think that portion has taught me to always not reinvent myself, but always to reevaluate who I am, what are my values, what are things that I want to carry with myself in the next chapter that identify me as me. Also, I would say architecture specific, my work ethic that I literally started at Penn State literally is why I'm here today. Because I mean, there's times where I'm at my desk and I'm like, I can't believe I'm in the situation that I'm in. And I know why. It's because, sorry.
No.
It's because I had no choice. School was hard. Mm-hmm. Architecture school was hard, and my fiance always jokes and it's like, you and your architecture friends always say, oh, architecture school was so hard. But it really was, because I was learning a different world that I didn't even know. I remember being in class and a professor was talking about window panes, and I was just like, what is a window pane? All I know is a window.
Right.
And so like little moments like that where it's like my mind would freeze up because I'm trying to figure out what a window pane is. I can't even, listen to the rest of the lecture, because I was stuck. And a lot of times when I was in architecture school, I felt stuck. But it's so crazy because, some of my friends would win architecture awards and I'm like, damn, like I want to be better. And I won this award from the Multicultural Center or something like that. And the award was the Resiliency Award. I was like, oh, look at this little award that I got, like, woohoo. But till this day, like, that's a word I use to describe myself all the time. And now, like, I look back at it and I appreciate and value that award way better than, any design award I could have received, because being resilient is what got me to a dream life that I never even could imagine for myself. And so, sorry, I'm like trying to calm down. But so being resilient in my work ethic, I remember working at Gumby's Pizza, building my model under the counter, while, my friends in studio would call me up and say, hey, Samantha, can we get a large pizza or some Pepsi? And I'm like, yeah, send me the coupons I gave you and I'll definitely send them to studio. And so it's like, I would have friends that would come to Gumby's Pizza and study for our engineering classes together. And so just what I've gained from Penn State that I still use today is that resiliency of like seeing an obstacle as just another step and not a boundary, not something that's stopping me, but just something that's making me think beyond the path that I was thinking before. And so, that was a lot.
That was a
Sorry.
lot. It's all right. I tell you, learning is hard.
Learning is hard.
Learning is hard when one is within a cultural space that is familiar.
Yeah.
When one is within a set of protocols and expectations and codes that are familiar, learning's still hard.
Right.
But when one has to move from one cultural space into another, and by culture, I mean the way we do things around here,
Mm-hmm.
And simultaneously try to attend to the nuances and even less than subtle differences in the way one cultural space or one set of practices plays out, and translate so that you can perform. It's challenging and it's hard and it takes energy and it's exhausting. So you need not apologize. I deeply appreciate what you're talking about. Well, I graduated from Penn State twice. I have both of my graduate degrees in art education. And I will have to tell you, there were moments where whether I was working double time, right, or not, certainly translating to some extent had to happen.
Yeah.
And it's physical. So your body remembers.
Yeah.
Your body remembers. So I
to like literally like not get emotional when I tell it, but it's just like, it happens every time. Because it's like I relive those experiences, even though like I'm not in that moment. It's just like, wow, I'm like so proud and happy that I, got past it. Because at the time it just felt like impossible.
Felt impossible, insurmountable.
Yeah.
Right. But you didn't give up. I mean, that's the resilient part. You didn't give in. You found ways to keep going. And I'm sure you pass along that same set of expectations. It's not you pass along that same set of characteristics to students. You provide them with similar with opportunities to think through and to work on that work ethic, maybe in ways that were different than you experienced, but I'm sure that must be a motivational pedagogical piece for you as well.
At one point, I would say I wouldn't want to do this again, but now, I'm so thankful for my experience because I could talk to students and I could see students that are struggling. I could see students that are insecure and I could say, listen, like I was in your position and you're looking up to me, you're admiring me. My colleagues are admiring, what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do. And so it's like, I'm always trying to remind that student, like, you can become better than what you think you are, and you're just as good as who you are, and be confident in who you are. And like, as a segue into, what can Penn State do? It's like, the professors there just have to acknowledge each student as an individual and, allow each student that comes with ideas based on their environment, based on their background. And as the professor, you should be able to acknowledge that and work with that student based on those parameters and not have that student change their design thinking process to a particular frame of mind or a particular environmental background or a particular understanding that, they might not know. Because again, the creative thinking process should be able to be applied along all, environments, not just a particular environment. And it wasn't until my 5th year I kind of had this moment where it's just like, I'm tired of like trying to please everyone, or I'm tired of trying to fit in. I'm just going to be me. And that was my best year as far as producing and being proud of my work. And that was when I let go of, you know, trying to fit, you know, this mold that, you know, the collective, you know, naturally fit in. And so once I became comfortable with myself, it, you know, I could see that in my work. And so if professors can champion, you know, that individual identity of each student, I think, you know, the school as a whole can come out with a better diverse portfolio of projects from a diverse pool of, you know, students. And yeah, who doesn't want that, right?
Who doesn't want that? I agree with you. I agree. I appreciate you framing your answer in that way, because certainly it gets back to that earlier question about, well, what can I do? What responsibilities? What can you do as a recipient of this question?
Right.
Putting it on the students is hard. I mean, students have to endure and work through
And learn.
curricula and learn, right? So turning it around on faculty members, professors, on our curricula, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
On the various curricula, but on the curriculum for any individual course, even policies.
Yeah.
So these are pieces that actually we're moving forward on to audit those courses, not as a student to audit, but to take a look at the content of
Right.
courses across the college, and to raise questions about how we are putting forward our ideals and beliefs and what is necessary to support and work toward the success of all students. And the way you framed it was wonderful. I mean, think about individual learners as
Yeah.
individual learners, not that there's not larger sets of skills and content and information to work through, but meeting students where they are and understanding that you're working with individual learners.
Exactly. Because the other thing is, you know, when we get out into the real world, you know, about 50% of, I mean, in architecture schools, you have 50-50 now, where you have 50% women, 50% of males. But by the time, you know, you're mid-career through the profession, you know, 32% of the number of women are slashed. And, you know, a lot of minorities, they end up taking government jobs, or, you know, they might leave the profession altogether. And so, you know, how can they be an architect within communities that they can thrive? If they're not trained to creatively, you know, they're not trained in the creative design process of how to apply design in different aspects. They may think like, if I can't be this kind of architect, I have to leave the profession. And that's not true. And so again, if we can, you know, have a more diverse approach on how we're teaching our students, then, you know, they can take this expensive degree and actually use it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, expense is a big one too. Those student loans are nobody's friend.
They are no one's friend except maybe the bank and the people working on the interest, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so we're working on that too. I think it
Yeah,
goes.
scholarship is important. Oh,
Scholarships are important.
that was another reason why I started Studio 397, because honestly, like, you know, I already knew I wasn't being valued like my equal counterparts, and I brought that up to management, and, you know, they still didn't do anything about it. And it's just like, look, like, I know some of my classmates didn't have to pay for school. You know, they had their parents paying for school, or maybe if they did take out a loan, it was extremely small compared to $180,000 that I left Penn State with. And so I couldn't afford to stay in a firm. I had my license, and for me, I needed to, like, I felt like I had been working so hard for so long, and I needed to feel some benefits from that. And so for me, I needed to give myself the freedom to be valued the way I needed to be valued. And so that was another reason why I started my firm, so that I wasn't paying student loans until I was 80 years old.
So that independence, but also it's just being practical and real too.
Yeah. Yeah. When I found out that, you know, firms might charge 2.5 times the rate they're actually paying you, I'm like, so I have my license and I can make more working for myself than I could just sitting here, and I could actually pay off my loans and actually feel free. I'm going to just work for myself and
Mm-hmm.
figure this out. And so I have no regrets. And like I said again, like I wouldn't change my experience for anything because it's what's made me me. And we need people like me too. You know, you need every kind of person. You need every kind of person in, you know, teaching our students so that, you know, you have a diverse range of, you know, faculty that can, you know, delegate, you know, how they're responding to, you know, a student's reaction to the curriculum or, you know, their projects and stuff like that.
I have numerous other questions I could build off of that particular frame, that topic. I want to shift now to a few other things, but certainly we have to pick up
Yeah.
this. We need part two of this part of the
Yes.
conversation for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. So, you know, we've talked about your time as a student at Penn State, being a student, and the energy and work that it takes to live and work in that context. We've talked about the racial climate and social climate now, but there's also another climate that we're living within, or a space that we're living within at the moment. In the middle of July, you and I are sitting down having this chat.
Yes.
July 2020, COVID-19 is part of every aspect of what we do. Can you talk a bit about how COVID has had an influence on your work as an architect, but even more specifically within what does it mean for your firm?
So because I'd started my firm 3 years ago and I was trying to be as economic as possible, I was actually working from home. So that didn't really change for me. But the way we're approaching design, for example, we recently won this big contract with a market in Brooklyn where we're doing the interior design. And, you know, we have to think about line management throughout the space and, you know, how people are picking up food or buying products from different vendors, how they interact in the public plaza that is on the outside of the building. And so thinking about, you know, the science behind the material and, you know, how clean can that material be after someone touches it, or the maintenance of that material. Also, and like I mentioned before, line management and how we're seeing people move through the space in a healthy fashion. And so everything that we're doing in design right now, we have to really pay attention to the tactile implications behind it. Like, you know, how are people interacting with others in a safe manner without, you know, bringing whatever back to the home. And so, so that has been the impact of, you know, how we're practicing with work, but even just with construction and how, like, I'm talking with the engineers or the contractors on site, like I'm talking to them with the mask, and like, you know, you want to shake their hand, but you can't really shake their hand. And then there's that common understanding where it's like, you know, I want to engage a little bit more, but I can't because we have to be safe. And, you know, scheduling with clients that have tenants in the building while we're going through it. And so there's been a lot of delays and new norms in how we operate.
And it sounds like part of your time as a student learning not just that big, larger outcome of resilience, but ways to maneuver
Yes.
in the face of obstacles or challenges pays off in this way, right? There's a transferable set of
Exactly.
skills.
You know, here's a problem being presented to me. How do I navigate around it or through it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So congratulations on this new contract and
Thank you.
in Brooklyn and working through these issues and within COVID. I mean, certainly that's kind of part of what happens. And it's super exciting to have a new contract whenever you get one. I mean, that's what you do. You're in business to gain contracts, right?
At the moment feels like the ultimate project to me. I say at the moment because who knows what's in store, but, you know, it kind of goes back to what we were saying before, you know, how can you be an architect within your community? This is a Caribbean market. And so, like, I'm literally providing my architectural skill set to an environment I'm a product of. I've never had a project like that. And so it's just like, what? I could use my skills I learned from school, from practice, and apply it to people like my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, my cousins. It feels good.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah. And again, it's the work ethic and the resiliency, because starting Studio 397 was actually my last attempt at architecture, because I was getting really frustrated and I was just like, where's the value in this? And so I had told myself, I'm going to try something different for a different result. And so far it's still working. And so, had I not told myself that, where it's like, okay, it's time to change, Samantha, it's time to reevaluate what you're doing, I wouldn't even have this project.
Wow. So just listening to there's an interesting circle that happens, right? Working on this project, it's exciting, it's energizing. Are you working on something else that's super exciting, or is this like the most exciting thing, or do you have plans for something in the future that you think might take you to another level
So I am working on another exciting project. It's a smaller scope, but it's just as exciting, but it's a brownstone renovation, for two doctors. One's a psychiatrist and another is an anesthesiologist. But again, I met the owner and I was like, wow, like you feel like you could be my friend. So it feels like I'm designing a brown or renovating their brownstone for friends. And so although they're not friends, having really good clients that you could communicate with, and, they understand, like, I'm trying to navigate through different issues with the Department of Buildings and stuff, is really good, because it's going to be a really beautiful project. It's very challenging just getting the drawings approved, but I'm really excited to see what that looks like, because I've always been a fan of brownstones. So having like a really exciting project and great clients is, 2 thumbs up for me.
Excellent. Well, that's a good place to be. That's
Yes.
a good place to be. So at the opening of our conversation, we talked about the 3 years from,
Yes.
that have passed since a student. Let's revise that time frame a bit and go to maybe a tried and true question, and that is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Not just 3 years. Where do you see yourself now 5 years in the future?
I started to have that conversation today, and I just started getting butterflies, because like now I understand how life operates. You might not always have the answer, but your work ethic is going to take you somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to be honest, I don't know what 5 years look. Okay, I kind of know what 5 years looks like on a personal level, as far as like I might take 6 months off to do absolutely nothing, once I'm done paying off my student loans,
Mm-hmm.
just to like live. I did also once say I might put architecture to the side for a year and just be a barista, in some
Mm-hmm.
random country, just because I can do that. I don't have debt tying me to having to work.
Right.
But architecturally, where do I see myself in 5 years or 10 years? I see myself working on a larger cultural project as the architect and the interior designer, and, being able to bring more people on as full-time staff in my firm and provide them with a work culture that makes them feel like them. And that doesn't mean like, the work culture is going to be tailored specific to each person that works in the company, but more of like, it's going to be a work culture where every individual can thrive being themselves.
So that that idea of supporting individuals so that they can be themselves, right? Where everyone can thrive. This seems to be a running theme for you.
It's so important, because it for me, it brings me a peace of mind when I can feel comfortable with who I am. Mm-hmm. And so I want everyone else to feel comfortable. I even told myself I'd love to have a firm where they're at my firm practicing to have their own firm. Like, like the plan is for you to leave and, potentially have your own firm, or, lead my firm, or be a leader in my firm, but like never to feel like I'm only here and I'm hired only because I could perform at this level. It's always, I want an environment where everyone feels like I'm excited for who I am now and who I can be.
So at some level, that sounds like mentoring. And I know that your work with NOMA, the National Organization of Minority Architects, that's volunteer work, but that's
it's
a professional
volunteer
service,
work, but it feels
right?
like a full-time job sometimes.
So what do you get out of it then? I mean, you already have a full-time job. You have this other. What do you get out of mentoring and volunteering?
Community, inspiration, motivation, lessons learned. For example, You know, we have a project pipeline where we're teaching students from the age 9 to 14 about architecture, because we understand the importance of exposure to the field is important, so that when it's time for a student to pick a major in college or pick a program in high school, they have architecture in the back of their head. So, you know, to increase those numbers so the next person at school doesn't feel alone. The next person has 3 other people that look like them in the program to help them navigate the program a little bit better. Also, you know, again, providing, you know, access to information to our members. For example, you know, if someone's studying for the AREs, we have an ARE study group where, you know, they'll have, you know, some licensed architect come in and answer a few questions, but they'll also take, you know, practice exams to, you know, get ready for the architecture exams. But also mentorship on different levels where, you know, I might be mentoring someone younger than me or strangely older than me. I find a lot of my members older than me asking me questions. I'm like, wait a minute, like, why is this happening? But it's because, you know, I now have experience in, you know, starting a practice and, you know, looking for work and engaging with clients. But also mentorship where, you know, I have mentors from the organization telling me like, oh, you know, the next time you engage with a project like this is what, you know, try this with your client. And so, or something as simple as we have a WhatsApp group and we're always texting to say like, you know, do you know a land surveyor? Do you know an engineer that does this particular type of work? And so access to resources is an extreme importance in the organization, but also access to leadership. A lot of us get leadership opportunities through the organization, which then teaches us how to manage staff, how to manage, like me being president of this organization, which I did not think I was ready for, has taught me how to communicate better, how to communicate with large groups of people. I'm always terrified when 1,200 people are staring at me speak, and I'm like, I'm not a good speaker. Why are you guys staring at me? But it has taught me how to now be a leader, and so being able to have that opportunity to learn how to lead and manage. A lot of times, you know, our executive board may start off young as a junior architect in their firm, but now they're learning how to properly take meeting minutes. And so, you know, 5 years from now, when they're asking, you know, a supervisor in their company, hey, you know, I'm interested in being project manager, and they say, what experience do you have? And you say, well, you didn't provide me with this experience, but I've gained this experience somewhere else where I've learned how to manage. I've learned how to, you know, delegate. I've learned how to, you know, take meeting minutes. And so it actually provides us with an opportunity to get skill sets that we're sometimes limited to in the workplace.
Mm-hmm. So you've just identified how important professional knowledge, skills, experiences can be acquired outside of those professional spaces and then become transferred
Exactly.
to other spaces. You know, in the framework time frame that we've been talking about, from student now with your firm, you are the president of this national organization, and people are coming to you for advice, and you are a leader, and we're always in this process of becoming and becoming more of and different from and evolving. So you have a lot of information to share. And you've shared it with a lot of people. There's one person though that I'm interested in knowing how and what you might share with that person, and that's your freshman self. When you first entered college, if you could talk to her again, what would you tell her?
Calm down. Stay calm and be resilient. Or well, my freshman self wouldn't even know the meaning of resiliency, but I would tell myself, I would tell my freshman self to calm down but continue going. Because again, had I stopped, I wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. But it's weird because it's like there's certain traits of my younger self I admire, and I'm like, wow, like I don't even think I realized what I was doing. I was, you know, just operating like that. And so I would just tell myself, continue doing what you're doing, but calm down, because you don't want to make yourself sick.
Do what you're doing, calm down, you'll get through it.
Yes.
Would 18-year-old Samantha have listened to you?
She would have kept my voice in the back of her head.
I love it.
I don't think she would have calmed down. She would say, I can't see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of exposure. If you can't see it, it's hard for you to realize it. And so, probably saying, come on, 18-year-old Samantha, let me expose you to architects that look like you so that you can go to class with the confidence that you belong here.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. All right, listen, Samantha, we're going to shift gears here. So you can
Okay.
might put yourself back or stay within that 18-year-old Samantha set of memories. But we're going to do some reflecting on Penn State, your time as a student at Penn State. And I have half a dozen questions I want to ask you. And I'm just going to fire them off quickly. And you just fire a response back. No, I'm not going to embellish the question. You don't need to
Okay.
embellish the answer.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
All right. Penn State Creamery, favorite flavor?
Butter pecan.
As a student, did you walk or take the loop?
Walk.
Did you ever hike Mount Nittany?
Yes. Once.
Once. What was your favorite campus dining place?
South Halls.
South Halls. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Where did you live as a first year student?
Beaver Halls, I think. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Beaver Halls. All right. And finally, what is your favorite spot on campus?
Now or then?
How about both?
Okay. My favorite spot on campus then was either the law school or the business school because the architecture was really nice and no one was ever in there after hours, so it was very quiet to study. Now I would say my favorite place to go somewhere that has a lot of grass and less people. So I would say probably where the law school is, where you have all that land. I think you still have land there. You're always doing construction at Penn State, but just anywhere where there's just a lot of greenery for me to like take in the trees. And that might be because I'm in New York and I don't have that many trees. And so every time I see a tree, I get excited.
I get it. Well, listen, Samantha, it has been great talking with you. I appreciate you taking time to sit
Yes,
down and chat. And I'm eager to have you continue engaging with Penn State in various ways. We can talk more about that.
yes,
But particularly with this new series, Movers, Shakers, Designers, and Makers, I'm thrilled that you have been one of the folks that I've been able to
yes.
chat with. So thank you
I'm
so
so
much.
happy to be a part of this. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.